So the point 2 in how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with mistakes, errors and mistakes is that this should be dealt with explaining the ruling, forcing people to convert to Islam or giving them information about reverting to Islam, which does not have any justification but rather it's your own opinions, does not work well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The way of the Prophet was to bring people to adhere to the Sharia law through the Quran, the prophetic Sunnah and the teachings, and through logic. In the authentic hadith, the Prophet once walked by one of his companions. His name was Jarhad, and this companion was exposing his thigh. Either it was due to the heat or he was working. Now the Prophet ﷺ passed by him. He said, "Cover your thigh." Nevertheless, the Prophet followed up with a justification. He said, "Cover the thigh, as the thigh is part of the awrah." And this hadith is what the majority of scholars use to justify that the navel to the knee is the awrah and it must be covered except in front of your spouse. Neither his children nor parents can see the awrah. No one else can see his thigh. It is haram. He clarified it with justification, and this cascaded with every incident. Mother Aisha, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her, tells us that the Prophet ﷺ was in an expedition and he was travelling, and he came home and he was standing still and did not enter, and I could see anger on his face. I was anticipating his return home and I was anxious to greet him. "O Prophet of Allah, I seek Allah's forgiveness. What have I done?" So the Prophet ﷺ pointed to a closet or a room that she had covered with a curtain, and this curtain had drawings of living creatures, and the Prophet ﷺ pointed to it, saying, "Aisha, don't you know the owners of such drawings are severely punished?" The Prophet pointed out the sin, and then he clarified the ruling. The Prophet ﷺ again showed us the reason, but gives a justification. It is haram because there are some rulings in Islam where we are not able to give justification, and it is a command that we must obey and we must adhere to it without asking for his justification, as it has been mandated upon us. There's something that Allah has mandated, but there's no specific ruling or any source of information which indicates why we do it. We just have to follow the command that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to do. We have to adhere with it. The third point is mistakes usually happen following whims and desires, or there can be a misconception. So it's either someone's following the whims and desires, they want to do what they want to do, or is a misconception, they're confused with the ruling. Even the Khawarij went over the rampage and rebelled against Ali, and they wanted to start a fight as in a war. Ibn Abbas and his father said to Ali, "Send me to them as your messenger and I'll debate with them." They had a misconception that needed to be cleared, so going to war with them would not be of benefit. Most of the people of innovation have this misconception that needs to be cleared. Rafida, who are the full-fledged hypocrites, want to dismantle Islam. They hate Islam, they misinterpret Islam, they worship other than Allah. The way of the Prophet ﷺ is to clear the misconception due to it not being clear in people's minds. A clear example is the hadith of Anas bin Malik, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, when 3 of the companions came checking on the forms of worship that the Prophet used to offer when he was in the home, and he went and asked the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, because they knew that his private dealings and the worship that the wives were exposed to, which others were not. When they were informed, they belittled it and they were shocked, and they came up with a misconception that the Prophet ﷺ did so little, as Allah has forgiven his previous and upcoming sins, so he has a golden ticket. That is why he is doing little. One of them said, "I'll never go sleep and pray all night until the break of dawn." The second one said, "I'll never skip a day of fasting from the break of dawn to sunset." The third one, "As for me, I desire women, and in order to please Allah, I take a pledge that I won't marry and I will be a monk." And the Prophet ﷺ heard all this. He was angered. He went to them, he spoke to them and said, "Are you the ones who said so and so?" And he cleared for them their misconceptions by saying, "Allah, the most knowledgeable of him, the most fearful among you of him, so I have both the knowledge and the fear of Allah. However, I fast and I break my fast. I pray night prayers and I sleep at night. And I marry women who seeks my sunnah and my way, then he is not from me. Sometimes we evaluate situations which is not based on Islamic principles. When we see a scholar of Islam who devoted his time, his life, his wealth for teaching people and correcting their aqidah and calling them to Islam, they did not pay attention to them, rather they pay attention to celebrities. Sahil ibn Sa'd ibn Sahidi tells us that the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions when a man passed by. So the Prophet asked his companions, "What do you say of this person?" So they started praising him and saying, "Prophet of Allah, he is worthy of one of the dignitaries. If he would propose to people, they would accept him in marriage. If he were to intercede, they would accept his intercession. If he were to speak, people should listen and obey." The Prophet did not say anything. A little later, another man came who was a poorer Muslim who walked by. So the Prophet said, "What do you say of this man?" "O Prophet of Allah, this guy is a poor man. He is worthy to propose to a family that he is rejected. If he were to intercede, his intercession would not be accepted." This is how people looked at two individuals, and the Prophet ﷺ corrected this imbalance and this misconception. This man is better than an earth full of men like the other man. Look at how the Prophet managed in a handful of words the conviction and the perception and how to evaluate people, and the importance of not looking at people based on their wealth. And this is something that is, common till this day. So this is what the Prophet ﷺ was trying to clear, this misconception in people's minds of people that are poor and the people that are rich. So I will leave you here for your Manila. I will catch you in my next episode, where I'll be talking about even more ways that the Prophet ﷺ used to deal with mistakes in different situations and how he dealt with it. So Astaghfirullah wa sallallahu wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.